Hey, Ruben Herrera, thanks for being back on the live stream with us.
Thank you for having me, Lisa. Looking forward to chat with you.
Yeah,
It's
me
been a
too.
while.
Yeah. I mean, not that long, a few weeks, but last time we talked, things were just starting to open back up in Germany. You were holding your first events,
I
and
know.
then
I
events
know.
started to happen elsewhere in Atlanta, where I am right this minute, and
That's
other
true.
places around the world. And now we're seeing all sorts of exhibitions and money events and junior events and all kinds of stuff starting back
It's,
up. So
it's happening. Tennis world is happening.
it is. Actually, in Atlanta this weekend, they're holding an event with fans, which I was really shocked to hear was happening. I have not really promoted it because I'm not in favor of having fans at this point. I don't think it's necessary here where the numbers are still going up, but I
L-
understand
l-
business has to happen.
Look, like we spoke about this because we also held tournaments and we
Hmm.
were the first ones and we were really cautious, especially not having fans. Sorry, not
That's okay.
having people, not having people in. Like you really have to take it really, really seriously.
Yeah.
And then we saw what happened at the event in with Djokovic, and I just this is my very personal opinion, and I agree with you. We don't need to be fearful. We don't need to. We want to get back into what things were.
Hmm.
I just think we know too little,
Yeah.
and since we know so little, I think we should be more cautious about it. Like there is no need to do that right now. Let us wait. For goodness sakes, we've been in quarantine for how many months now?
Yeah. Four
And
now. I
oh,
mean, over
that, that,
4 months for
that's
some
what I'm saying.
places.
Like
Yeah.
if we're allowed to work and if we're allowed to let athletes compete and we can watch it on live streaming or TV or whatever it is, hey,
Mhm.
that's great. Like it's not the same, yes, I know, but it's safety first, right? That's not what we're
Yeah,
told all the time anyway.
yeah, yeah.
Um,
I agree. And so you're in Germany right now,
yes,
and things are starting to open back up. You had contacted me that league play is happening, tournaments are happening. So share with the Parenting Aces audience what tennis looks like in Germany right now.
this is um, Germany is a lot like the US in that sense. Is really depending on each state. Have different rules, different procedures because obviously some of them have still a lot of cases. Some of them have very little. We are lucky to be in one where there's not much going on in terms of COVID-19. So by now, this is actually a really fun story. We started. The federation told us that we were gonna play club tennis, the league,
Okay.
but it was only singles, no doubles, no eating together.
Okay. But it's
And
it's the regular summer league where the
we're
players are
like,
paid, they earn
yes,
money
like
for
this
playing,
is
or
the big
Bundesliga.
Bundesliga, the whole league
Yeah.
playing, right?
Okay.
So everyone was like, well, this doesn't feel right because especially the better teams, because you have to drive fairly far. I'm talking about maybe you have driving 2 3 hours to play a match.
Okay.
And
That's
then
nothing in the States,
yeah,
by
I
the way.
know, but we're spoiled here, I guess.
Yeah.
Then the thing was like a lot of teams end up canceling
Mm,
because you had the choice. Yeah. And some people say, well, the fun part of it is the social aspect of it.
yeah.
What is a shame is, and this was uncontrollable because the government has been changing the rules pretty much weekly of what you're allowed to do and not to do. Like
Same
I'm
here.
not joking. Like three, because this is another one that no one understood, but it was a rule. You were able to have group lessons, three to
Mhm.
four people, but you're not allowed to play doubles. Exactly. That is that reaction you had. Everybody
Yeah,
was
that's
like,
weird.
I know that's weird. So
Yeah.
anyway, somehow the government goes and says, no, now you're allowed to play doubles, which means in the club leagues, we're allowed to play doubles. But the decision of canceling or not for the teams was made before we knew that that was going to happen.
Mm,
And a week after that one, then they said that restaurants are allowed to open as long as they have the social distancing, and especially if they have outside areas.
Okay.
And the rule in Germany, just to share with you, is you can be outside without masks, but as long as you go to a place where you have to share a common space,
Mhm.
you have to wear masks. So if you go
Okay.
to a restaurant, you can be on your table and you can sit without a mask, no problem, in your table. But if you go to the toilet, if you pass other people at tables, you have to wear a mask.
And that's a national
That's a
rule?
national rule.
See, we don't have national rules here around mask wearing.
Yeah, that one is national,
Yeah,
luckily.
okay.
And if you go to supermarket, you have to wear your mask. If you
Mhm.
go to, for example, we have a player now from the UK who is gonna play club tennis and gonna do some exhibition matches as well.
Mhm.
And we wanted to be sure. He has been at home the whole time, but we tested him. We did go and got him tested. And again, you go to the doctors, obviously.
Yeah.
Wear your mask, common area, what you would expect.
Right. Right. And I mean, what's interesting is the club tennis that you're discussing, that's something that a lot of top American college players and even top junior players have
No.
played in the past. But this year, I
Well,
don't think people from the US can get in to Europe right now, right?
this is we have a lot of college players in our academy, and
Mhm.
we have from other clubs and everything that they also play. And this is a conversation we're having pretty much weekly or daily, kind of like. So they go back or they go out of the US quick enough right before the whole big wave came, because
Mhm.
school was already canceling, like college was already canceling, everything was gone online. The NCAA stopped playing, so they were like, "Well, we go home." But now they're here,
Right.
and yes, they're actually playing the club tennis, and they're fine. But as you
But I'm
said,
saying American college
um,
players
that's
typically
what
would fly over
that's
to
what
Europe,
the
right?
Europeans made it because they
Yes.
came back home.
Right, right,
But a lot of the American ones
right,
didn't make it,
right.
and it's a shame because it's an amazing experience. Number one, it's also a shame because the level, obviously, of competition is still pretty good.
Mhm.
But the more players and the more different kind of players you have, the better it is. Obviously, the league much
Sure.
more fun to watch. And the question now is, what happens with traveling
Yeah.
and tennis? And this is what I found really interesting. I don't know. I'm gonna make a call. I'm gonna make a prediction here.
Okay.
I think I think Europe will stay pretty much close within Europe. I'm pretty sure tennis Europe events are gonna start happening by
Mhm.
August, September. I am pretty sure anything that is within Europe will will start happening.
Okay.
But I do not see right now going back and forth with Asia or with the US or with Africa. Really, I
Mhm.
do not see that. I don't. I'm pretty sure borders are gonna close actually as soon as the winter comes in.
What are you hearing about European players coming for the US Open? Not
Not
happening?
very positive. And
Yeah.
which is I mean, I really don't want to burn or talk about something that is already gone and not very well. But like what happened in the Adria tour didn't
Mhm.
help at all.
Right.
What again? This is the number one player in the world, and this happened in his event,
Mhm.
which has been causing now a lot of trouble for all the especially European players. They're
Yeah.
like, this is silly. Like this is within Europe. We all here, and this happened. Are we gonna go to the US? Because look, they are professionals, and yes, they will do what they need to do. But it's too tempting. It's too. We're humans. We like to be with each other. We want to talk. We want to see
Right.
how is it going. How was it for you? What have you been up to? Let's have dinner together. Let's hang out together. Let's party together.
Right.
Um, And I think from what we have been hearing from our friends that are close to the tour, they actually are not very keen on traveling at the moment. They really want to stay healthy. They want to just what we talked about last time: exhibitions,
Yep.
matches, maybe local events, local tournaments, club tennis. I'll earn obviously less money, but
Right.
I'm healthy.
Yeah. Well, and that's the trick, right? Is, obviously the Grand Slams are the biggest purses in professional tennis. And so there is that temptation, especially for players outside the very top of the game
I know.
who, rely on that paycheck 4 times a year. And it's tough. And especially if the French Open still happens in the fall, the European players could certainly stay in Europe, play the French Open, not have to worry about traveling overseas to get here for the US Open. It's going to be interesting to see what happens. But for the purposes of this conversation, Ruben, I'm really interested to hear what's happening in junior tennis in Germany and what you're hearing from the junior players in terms of coming to the US to play college tennis, and what are they thinking about in terms of whether it's going to be a possibility for them, whether it's something that they even want to think about at this point? What's the
It
scoop?
well. This is two questions. Number one, with the players that are already here and are playing, the club tennis is really running pretty much as you expected.
Okay.
Social distancing is happening, but it's normal. You're still going this your same kind of balls. You're playing your normal singles and doubles now. Um, so that I don't think people are very skeptical or having too much trouble with.
Okay.
And as soon as this club tennis season stops, there will be tournaments in all over Europe, but definitely in Germany where we are, because we already know that the organizers are keeping the schedule. I mean, they canceled the one in July, but August until now looks like it's happening.
Okay. And those
Um,
are tournaments where there's prize money, there's sponsors, so it's an opportunity
we're
for
talking about
players to earn
junior
money.
events.
Oh, okay. Junior events.
Junior
Gotcha.
events will be no problem.
Okay.
In terms of professional level, that could be a bit different because what we're looking at is what we just saw, like events like Motor Glow, events like ours, events like these are the things that are gonna start happening, and they're
Mhm.
gonna keep on. They're gonna continue. Um, Interesting with the college players is they are extremely excited because it is exciting to go to the NCAA and play this kind of level and this experience. Um, the thing is, it's so uncertain at the moment.
Yeah.
They don't even know if we have, as I said, we have a lot of student athletes. And first of all, they don't know if they can travel.
Mhm.
Second of all, they don't know if school is going to be all online. And third of all, is are they going to be allowed to compete?
Right.
What is really interesting, though, is coaches, from what they have told us, are saying we are gonna go, as in we're doing this. We are
Mhm.
gonna play. Let's assume that's the assumption, I guess, what they're going to. And now they're getting creative on how in the world they're gonna cross over the Atlantic to make it to the US. One of the players told me that they are thinking about flying to the Bahamas because you can fly to the Bahamas at the moment from
Okay.
Europe, do 14 days in the Bahamas, that's your quarantine.
Mhm.
And because the Bahamas has no problem with the US flying at the moment either, that's the bridge.
Okay.
So they are,
Interesting.
I know, so they are
Yeah.
finding countries and places where the agreements are still okay, where there are still flights, and if they can afford it to stay there for the 14, 15 days that they need to, so they have done their quarantine already.
Interesting. Can you imagine as an 18-year-old having to figure all that out to come here to play college tennis? I mean,
It's
it's hard enough for our American kids to make that transition from living at home, and then transitioning to moving on campus and being independent and all of that. these poor kids from outside the US, I mean, it was a challenge already.
It was.
Now you have that extra step of how do you bridge, like you
I,
said.
I
I think
tell
it's
you
crazy.
even I tell you even more of a crazy story, because again, this is misinformation. We don't know.
Right.
So a couple of them have said to me, it's like, we're in Germany, which has been pretty safe in terms of handling the situation. He
Mhm.
says, but I'm gonna go to college, and in my college there are kids from Florida where they
Yep.
have pretty open rules,
Yep.
or New York, or, and he says like, I'm being quarantined and I'm gonna have to be 14 days somewhere. It was like, and they what they are
Yeah.
doing, like,
Yeah.
so this is where actually you start looking at things like, as you said, it's like, oh wow, I didn't think about that one. That didn't cross my mind. And these are very valid questions. And as I said, there's a lot of misinformation. It's a lot of uncertainty, and I just hope again that we figure this out.
Right. Well, and also for the kids who do decide to come to the States, come back, if they're returning as a sophomore, junior, senior, or coming
Exactly.
for the first time as a freshman, there's that fear of getting stuck over here, right? And not being able to get back home if, God forbid, there's another outbreak or who knows. I feel like we've got a new plague every week hitting the world. It's nuts. But that concern about being, doing the quarantine and then coming on campus and being with kids from states where they don't have strict rules in place. I mean, that's a concern for the American kids as well,
Yes,
kids,
absolutely.
right? So this is a universal concern right now, and we don't know if dorms are going to be open. We don't know what classroom instruction is going to look like. Right now, we don't even know what college tennis is going to look like. We've seen so many programs getting cut and postponed, and lots of turnover, and there are tons of kids in the transfer portal. I mean, it's a mess right now, but it's
That,
all
that
very fluid.
that's another thing I've been asking. I actually wanted to speak to. We have a good friend. He works for a company called Uni Experts. Um, I wanted to ask him because I've heard that a lot of programs are cutting budgets
Yep.
and canceling. Because I also know about a girl who wants to transfer right now at this moment, and she told me it's been a challenge
Sure.
because a lot of programs have been cutting their budget.
You need to read my article that I just published last week. It's called hashtag Save College Tennis, and it's got all the
Okay,
statistics and links to the programs that have been cut. And one of the links includes a website where it's being updated every day with programs that have been cut,
I'll
programs that have been postponed by division, by sport.
I'll
So,
definitely share this with a lot of people that actually are looking at this information at the moment. This will be very
yeah,
helpful for them.
yeah,
That's great. That's great.
I got a lot of help pulling the information together, but I feel like at least for right now, it's one place to go and look and see what's happening at the schools you're interested in. But we're seeing coaching changes. We're seeing a lot of coaches retire. They're using this opportunity. Maybe they were kind of on the fence about retiring,
Oh
and
wow.
now it's like, oh yeah, maybe now's the time. Um, we're seeing kids who had announced they were going to come back for a fifth year decide, oh, maybe now I'm not going to come back for a fifth year because I'm just going to go ahead and graduate and move on. I mean, there's a lot happening, and it again, it's so fluid. Every day something's different, something's changed. So especially for the kids overseas, staying on top of that, making sure they have the proper documentation, proper testing, all of that stuff it's just a challenge.
I think you almost have to make the commitment of saying, let's say somebody's a sophomore and he
Mhm.
or she wants to go back. It's like you almost have to make the commitment. I'm just gonna go back and I'm gonna finish my degree however I finish it, and the next even year or so, I don't know what's gonna happen. I'm just gonna stay here and commit to finish my degree or to finish at least a year ahead.
Mhm.
Or I'm gonna commit to just stay home and do it from home and forget that unfortunate experience. Because as you said, it's already really hard to do that in the US,
Yeah.
and to do it from overseas is mission impossible. You gotta make that commitment, which is a very tough decision to make as well.
Sure. Well, and one of the things that I heard yesterday, which I hadn't thought about was, there's a lot of backlash about some of the teams that are getting cut not having very many, if any, Americans on the roster, and how, if you want your team to be secure, you've got to recruit American kids and yada, yada, yada. That's been a conversation that's been going on for a long time. But what I hadn't considered was these schools that do have international players on the roster that aren't going to make that decision to come back, or can't get back to the US. All of a sudden you're going to see college coaches scrambling to fill those roster spots. So it might end up being a great opportunity for some American
American
college
players.
bound players, who weren't seeing opportunities at some of these programs. Now all of a sudden maybe there's a spot for them. So it's kind of a mixed bag, as always, right? There are
L-
pros and cons to
l-
all of it.
Lisa, I would like to ask you this: if you were in that situation, if you have your girl, she's a junior in college or sophomore, like how will you? What kind of questions will you ask yourself? How will you go about this process to come up with a decision that kind of has been thought throughout? How do you see this? I'm really
As an
curious now to see this.
American family or an international
Both,
family?
actually, both. Even as an American, but I just want to go. I really want to, because these questions are going to be questions that I'm going to have, or this conversation I'm going to have with the parents from
Sure.
our place. You know, what I mean, that
Mhm.
in Europe right now. I just want to. I hate to say these words, like pick up your mind a little bit. Like I want to see how. What would you think? What would be your thought process on this? What would you ask yourself and your kids in
Well,
this area?
I mean, I think the first question is, if the tennis doesn't happen, are you going to be okay going back to school and not playing tennis? Because
Mhm,
there's a real possibility that the tennis isn't going to happen.
mhm.
Or if it does happen, it's going to look different, right? There's going to be more regional competition, not flying all over the country and all
Yes,
that. So I think that's the first question. The second question is, what am I going to do if I get sick, or if my team, somebody, enough people get sick on the team that we're quarantined? How am I going to handle that? And have a game plan in place, or at least have the conversation around
that's a great
making a
question.
plan for that, because that's another real possibility, of
Very
course.
real,
And
very real.
we're already hearing some of the universities talk about having a short fall semester, and when Thanksgiving hits, which is third week in November for us here, that's going to be the end of the semester. Everybody's going to go home and they're not going to come back until January for the spring. Um, a lot of schools are talking about doing that, but a lot of schools are also talking about continuing with the online education. And if you're coming to have that college experience, and you're not going to have that college experience because all of the instruction is going to be on a computer,
Yeah,
that, you know, is it worth the cost and the stress and the risk of coming back to a campus and then just being stuck in your dorm, or stuck
that's
in your apartment? And then, one question that came up yesterday, when I was talking to Scott Hamback, is this whole notion of, our family's going to be willing to pay 40, $50,000 a year for online instruction and not getting that full college experience. So it's not just COVID-19 that we have to talk about, and it's not just tennis that we have to talk about, but it's kind of this whole structure of what the college experience is, what financially it's worth to pay
yes.
for that, and what do you do if pieces or all of it kind of go by the wayside because we have another outbreak? So I'm afraid I'm not giving you a whole lot of information, but
No, you actually gave me a lot of valuable information.
okay, well, good. I mean, I just feel like these are the conversations that need to be happening. And I know here in the US, a lot of the college recruiting process is focused around the tennis and how good is the coach and who else is on the team, and am I going to be in the lineup, and what's my fall season going to look
Hmm.
like, and all of that. Well, I think now the conversations are shifting a little bit and not so focused around the tennis piece, but more focused around the academic piece and the full experience piece. And we don't know what's going to happen with scholarships. We don't know how much money these schools are going to have. We are hearing that these budgetary woes have been going on for years,
True.
and the universities are now using COVID-19 as the excuse for all
That's
of
been
it,
for
but
years.
it's not. This has been a long time problem, and budgets have been mishandled for years and years and years, and um, so this is kind of the straw that broke the camel's back, so to speak. But I mean, we just don't know. That I think, as you said before, that's the biggest challenge right now is you make a decision based on what you know today, but that knowledge base can look 180 degrees different 2 or 3 days from now, and
It's
for sure
it,
by September.
and that's what I believe is gonna make this. It's shaking us. It
Mhm.
definitely is shaking us. And as you said, it's not only shaking us, it's shifting conversations, it's shifting the way we understand and look everything that we're doing.
Mhm.
Everything. But what I find fascinating is, and, and this is why I find talking to you so enriching, so like valuable, is because as a parent, you still have the job of being the biggest teacher and the biggest mentor and the biggest role model for your kids.
Mhm.
And how, as a parent, which I'm not, I'm just looking as a coach, it's like, what kind of, how do you really speak to your child about this? How do you really, because this is just simply, it's just a crisis, and crises are never gonna stop coming.
Sure.
And how you go at it, and how you confront it, and how you attack it, and how you perceive it, and how you go at it, how you find solutions to it, will very likely determine a lot on how you see the world in the future. So how you really keep assertive, how you keep dynamic and flexible enough to keep
Right.
on adapting to the new circumstances, how you can really quickly find different ways to get ahead, because this is what we're going to do.
Yeah.
and
Yeah, and it's funny because I had this I keep referencing these other conversations, but I did a live stream earlier today and we had all sorts of technical issues before we went online. And we had a guest and we were laughing about the fact that our guest was able to just pivot every time she would hit a roadblock with the technology, she would try something else. And when that didn't work, she would try something else. And I'm like, here you are living these
exactly.
skills that we preach as, the beautiful thing about our sport is this is one of those life skills that tennis teaches
Yes.
our kids, right? You have to
Yes.
think on your feet. You have to be willing and able to pivot, 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 pivot when things aren't
Yes.
working and have a plan B and a plan C and a plan D. And it was really kind of beautiful, even though it was frustrating, I'm sure, for her. It was kind of beautiful to watch her go through that process and maintain her calm, and she didn't get flustered. And this is exactly what you're talking about. We now are putting our kids to the test. How well have they learned these life lessons from our sport, and how are they going to apply them to a really big decision right now that isn't happening on
Yes.
a tennis court, but it's a big life decision that they're going to have to live with.
But the analogy is beautiful because it actually is like that. It's like situation presents itself, assess it quickly, act quickly.
Yeah,
Good decision, bad decision, next one, move on, learn
right.
from the past one, but is at a pace and at a in an area, or in an area that we have not seen it before, or at a scale that we have never seen it before.
Yeah.
No, that's what I find extremely interesting. But again, it's a great chance to have very meaningful conversations.
For sure.
I find it fascinating. I hate to admit it. It's really bad because I wish everyone would know what's going to happen and they can plan
Sure.
and everything. But it's how we can stay on our toes and really react and really plan for uncertain times.
Sure, sure. And again, we can talk again next week, and things are probably going to look very different. There are a lot of big tournaments on the calendar here in the States for junior players. USTA just announced today they're going to hold a series of events at the national campus in Lake Nona that they're going to live stream so college coaches can watch. And even though it will be the recruiting dead period still, somehow they've worked around that with NCAA. I'm not real sure. I guess it's because they're not having face-to-face contact, and the coaches are simply watching the kids play. They're not going to interact with them. So there's a lot on the horizon, but that's taking place in Florida, which has seen a huge surge in COVID cases. So again, it's everything's so fluid right now, and I think we all just have to continue to be flexible, but at the same time plan as if things are going to move forward in a way that we hope,
We hope for
that will look normal, whatever that means anymore. And but be ready to pivot at the last minute if necessary. And
that's
it's a little
another
trickier when you're coming from across the ocean.
true, but that's another thing that we are seeing. How recruiting, just a simple example, like it's gonna have to be digitally,
Yep.
and that coach is gonna have to be reaching out also to the coaches and the people that that player is working with, because he cannot see that himself or
Hmm.
herself. He's going to have to build that trust with the coach that is working with that person, so they have a better idea of what really that player is able or capable of doing.
Right.
um
And the onus is on the potential student athlete, the prospective student athlete,
yes,
to reach out to the college coach and then to make that connection between the college coach and the junior coach, right? To open up that line of communication, because unless you're at the very top of the junior rankings,
yeah, if
you're
you're not blue
working at
chip,
the
yeah, exactly, if you're
yeah,
not blue chip
right.
recruit, then you have to really get that line of communication going.
Yeah, and so the onus is on the PSA to take those steps. But as you said, the junior coaches are going to become that much more important. We spoke on Monday, I think, with Ben Van Hout, who is a kid. He's not a kid; he's a young man now. But for me, he's always a kid because he grew up with my son. But he's from Atlanta, and he and some of his cohorts have started. College and junior mixed team of series of events. So the college players and the juniors are playing against one another. And one of the things that he and I spoke about was how this is a great opportunity for the PSAs also, because if they're playing against a college player at a school that they're interested in attending, then they have now that relationship. That college player goes back to the coach and says, "Hey, I played this
I
kid in
played
this
this kid,
tournament.
yeah.
He'd make a great addition to our team. You ought to talk to him." So everybody's having to get creative right now. And again, it's just, we got to be ready to pivot on a moment's notice and do what we need to do. But for those who want to play in college, this is not a time to sit back and wait for coaches to reach out to you. It's just
Mm,
not. The
it's
coaches
not.
don't have the funds, they don't have the time, and they have their hands tied right now. So,
But to be honest with you, in a way, I'm also excited what's going to happen afterwards, because I think a lot of systems and processes and institutions that were in place,
mhm,
if they didn't adapt, if they didn't move quick enough with the market, with the technology, with the wants and desires of the people playing tennis, they won't be leading the market anymore. Like,
right.
now it's time to really, whoever has been working on something cool is gonna show up,
Mhm.
because change is happening all the time. Just the situation is speeding it up so much faster.
Yeah. But
So
either exhibitions you put on. You stepped up
Yeah.
really quickly. You got it organized, you got it on the calendar, you got players, you got sponsors, and then you exported it to Atlanta, and same
Yeah.
things were happening here. And I mean, this is what we're seeing, right? There's an event going on right now that a former college player is heading up and running. And, we've got an event going on in West Virginia right now that stepped up when our national clay court tournament was canceled, our USTA event was canceled. So another group stepped up and put on a clay
Well,
court national event, and now USTA, like I said, is creating these events in partnership with UTR of all things, which, who thought that would ever happen? And it's
ah,
happening at the national campus. So I think we are seeing, and I think it is exciting, like you're saying, and everybody is kind of the light bulbs going on that either we adapt or we die. I mean, that's
yes,
just where we are. So I
yes.
love seeing the innovation. It's great.
I I'm excited because, as I said, I think tennis needed it,
Yeah.
and now it has to.
Yeah.
And I'll go a step further. I think the ATP and the WTA will have to come up with a different way of consuming tennis.
Mhm. I agree.
I I am pretty sure now is the time for them to actually also step up and do something pretty cool, and the ITF for that matter, and the
Mhm.
big federations. Because, as you said, tennis has been, sadly, because it's such a wide world sport, it's really pushed to 4 Grand Slams,
Yeah.
couple of Masters 1000, a couple of big WTA events, and the finals at the end of the year.
Mhm.
And we both know that tennis is way, way, way more and deeper than that. So
I
I'm
think it'll be
great.
fun to see what kind of regional tours emerge with all of this, because I think that's what's gonna have to happen with travel restrictions and fear of travel, even if there
Yes.
aren't restrictions. But, some people like me can't stand it. The thought of getting on
Mhm.
an airplane is terrifying. So I think we're gonna start to see more of that regional tour kind of action happen where, you're in a city or, an area with, I don't know how many events back to back to back, so that there's not a lot of movement around. We don't risk spreading COVID. We don't risk contracting it and taking it, to different areas. And I don't know. We'll see. I'm excited too, but I'm nervous for the people trying to make a living in the sport right now. I think it's a tough time to try and make a living. I think the junior coaches are starting to bounce back, and
Yes.
some of the tournament directors are starting to bounce back a bit. But from a professional level, I think it's going to be really tough for really for those outside the top 100, and maybe even outside the top 50.
For the junior world, maybe I'm wrong, maybe you know something I don't know. I don't see that much of a difference happening, besides that it's going to stay very local, very regional, but that's the way it is anyway now, unless you are a top national player, which is traveling all over the place. But in general, as you said, I mean, as an example, our local program is running pretty much like normal by now.
Hmm.
We knock on door like wood. We didn't lose clients. That stayed about the same. In fact, a lot of people are like, tennis is now a sport that we can safely play, and we're interested, and we would like to play more. So that kind of was cool for us. Um, Events, as we mentioned, tournaments and club tennis is happening. So at the local level, that's going to happen. That's going to be fine. Um, I don't think in coaching much is going to change either. Like, social distancing is there already.
Right.
We might get creative on doing some more things, which I find it cool. Probably a bit more online, trying to push a little bit more content online, especially, um, I hope, for juniors, not only for coaches, opens. And I think that's about it. But as you said, at the top, at the living from this sport is going to be really, really hard.
Yeah, it's tough.
Really, really hard. Tough.
Well, it's good to hear from you and to hear that things are going well in Germany and to see your
Thank
smile
you.
and that you're healthy. That's all good. And I will be curious. We should check in again as we get closer to the start of the fall semester. I'd be really curious to hear what's happening with those prospective student athletes that you're working with who want to come to the States for college or who want to come back for a second, third, fourth year, whatever. What is going into their decision making process and what their thought process is over, staying in Germany versus coming back
Back to
here
the US.
and yeah, and staying in the US, if necessary. So I think, like you said, we've who knows what things are going to look like in a few weeks, but I think it's important that we all stay abreast of what's going on. And I appreciate you coming on and sharing what you're seeing in Germany from the junior level, from the pro level, from the club level. And I'm sorry that you don't have the American kids over there playing club tennis this summer,
It's
but
a shame.
yeah, but I'm glad you've got some of your own there and that things are back in action. So that's good news.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure. I really had a blast. Your insights, I'm seriously going to speak. I'm going to use this to speak to the parents of the student athletes we have here. Valid questions, and I really appreciate that because I think it's going to help them make better decisions when it comes to it.
Great. Well, Ruben, take care and we'll be in touch. I'll look forward
You
to
too,
talking
Lisa.
to you again soon.
Hopefully, take care of
Yeah.
you. Bye.
Thanks. Bye. Thanks for tuning in, y'all. We'll see you. I think we have another live tomorrow, every day this week. It's crazy. Not Friday because I'll be on a plane. But other than that, lives every day. So keep checking back with our
Check it
schedule.
out.
All
Have
right.
fun.
Thanks.
Ciao.
Bye.